This is Backstage Bay Area. Now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
This is Backstage Bay Area. I'm Steve Roby. My guest today is a musician, composer, and producer who has rapidly emerged as one of the most distinctive voices in modern jazz. Originally from San Francisco, she began her career as a rock drummer and later discovered the vibraphone while attending the Oakland School for the Arts. Since moving to New York, she has won the Downbeat Critics Poll for Rising Star, Vibraphone, recorded with such giants as Christian McBride, and is currently a professor of jazz at UC Irvine. She returns to her home turf this week for a highly anticipated upswing double bill at SFJAZZ with singer Michael Mayo. Sasha Berliner joins me now. Hey, Sasha, thanks for being here.
Hey, happy to be here. Looking forward to this. Yeah.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you. Sasha, you're a San Francisco native and have described your sound as politically charged and style bending, moving far beyond traditional jazz boundaries. How much of that experimental genre blurring spirit do you attribute to growing up in the Bay Area's artistic landscape and to your formative years at Oakland School for the Arts?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that all of my music is politically charged. I think I've only introduced politics into a couple of my songs. But yes, definitely the genre defying or bending kind of thing is present in my music. I think I have this jazz foundation, but I grew up with rock music, like you already mentioned. I grew up with alternative music, hip hop, all of these things. And I think that with jazz having existed for over 100 years, it's also taken on so many different eras. So at this point, I think I'm just concerned with creating music that I like based on the inspirations that I have. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it falls into a traditional jazz category. It could, I guess, in some aspects, sometimes for live performances, just depending on what I'm feeling like playing at the moment or depending on the venue or the audience. But my original music, I would say, doesn't fall into that. So, yeah.
Did any of the Bay Area's musical influence growing up here rub off on you? Do you still feel that kind of vibe when you come here?
Yeah, I think so. There's so much great music that comes out of the Bay Area that isn't jazz related. There's so much good like funk, fusion super groups. There's so much hip hop that came out of the Bay Area. There's all these great rock bands. So yeah, and I grew up going to all kinds of different shows here in the Bay Area. And my dad was a bass player, and he played in the Bay Area punk scene when he was, I guess my age. So
curious. Wow.
That, I think that all that stuff kind of has an influence for sure.
What groups was he in? Just curious.
Well, he was in a bunch of different ones.
Okay.
I think he most prominently worked with a band called Alice Donut, and they're still around as far as I know.
Okay.
But
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
yeah, he wasn't a professional musician necessarily. I think he did some touring, but it wasn't ever his main line of work.
Interesting. So your musical identity shifted when you moved to New York to study with Stefon Harris, who recently played SFJAZZ. You said his influence on your understanding of harmony was pivotal. On your recent album, Fantôme, released this past spring, you explore the idea of ghosts or phantoms of genre. How did that blend of academic discipline and New York City energy help you paint the specific emotional ranges we hear on that record?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to that record, again, I'm furthering this idea of, jazz is not supposed to sound like one specific thing, or especially with associations to the vibraphone. I think those associations tend to be more antiquated. The main things that come to mind are like, and not that this is antiquated, it was also modern for the time, but, modern jazz quartet, Milt Jackson, Lionel Hampton, that sort of classic jazz vibraphone sound. And I think that my music doesn't really sound like that. So it recontextualizes what the vibraphone means. And then in terms of working with Stefon, he has a whole system of focusing on harmony and how harmony is in relationship to emotion. So it's something that I teach my own students, but it's also something that is a big part of my compositions and making sure that they speak to my audience. without me having to use lyrics. And I think that's part of what makes a really good composer as well. So it's just something I've gotten better at over the years, I think.
All right. So I asked you to bring a few tracks from your catalog to showcase your voice to our listeners. Let's start with the track Jade. Even though this was from a previous release, you mentioned it's the closest relative to the new electric band you're currently developing. When you were writing Jade, were you already hearing the digital effects and synths that have since become a hallmark of your recent work, or did that sound evolve as you were prepared for shows like Winter Jazz Fest?
I think that I've had small introductions in my previous album. So like on Phantom, you hear a bit of use of synth. It's like a bit of just like an additional surprise texture. There's a bit of post-production, but I wouldn't say that it's the center of the album. And I would say the same thing about the album that Jade is on, which is called Onyx, that it's not at the center of the album, but it's certainly something that's used throughout the album. And it sort of exists right along the acoustic instruments and the acoustic sound. That tends to be the format that I perform in live, or that I prefer, is kind of a balance of both. But yes, I'm starting this new electric band. The album is not out yet. It will be out probably in later 2026, but the difference is that that album is going to be focused on music like this exclusively.
Okay.
So there's going to be almost no upright bass. There's going to be no acoustic piano whatsoever. It's all synth. And yeah, just the sound is as a whole more electric. There's more reference to these famous electric bands like Headhunters, like Weather Report, like Steps Ahead, like, you know, all of these groups, but also a lot of the sort of modern jazz groups that are doing this, like Chris Potter Circuits Trio, or like Knower, you know, all of these different bands that I think have also been a huge influence to me. So it's something that I developed specifically for this album, but it's something I've always been interested in doing, and I've always been influenced by, I would say, yeah.
Interesting. Was there something that pushed you or motivated you to go in this electric direction?
I just wanted to do something different. I think it's interesting that people know I have these jazz capabilities. They can reference these other records and be like, oh, here she is. She can swing. She can play over these standards, even if it's her arrangement, even if it is modern jazz. You know, she can exist in this acoustic format, but then she also has this electric band. So if people book my shows and say they want one sound over another, they actually have the option of doing either of them rather than only seeing more one side of me. I think a lot of people tend to be like, oh, well, you know, mostly jazz venues or jazz festivals, but now it's like I can bring my group to non-jazz festivals and it would work.
Nice. Well, let's play the track we were just talking about. This is called Jade, and this is Sasha Berliner on Backstage Bay Area. That was Jade by Sasha Berliner. It's on her album Onyx, which is available now. Sasha is my guest today here on Backstage Bay Area. Sasha, you've worked with an incredible variety of artists spanning a vast range of musical headspaces. Does being such a versatile side player make it easier or harder to define your own sound when you step into the role of band leader?
I don't think I would say that it makes it easier or harder when I step into that role, but I think that it absolutely informs that role. I think you take on a different mindset when you're band leading. You're dealing with, making sure all of your artists have the sheet music. You're featuring your compositions, obviously. You're talking to the audience. You're dealing with your merch. It is sort of centered around your sound and your band. And there's more of that sort of like you need to be more in charge of your own logistics. I mean, even if you have a manager or a booking agent, you're still kind of responsible for the sound of the band in a way that is, I think you have more pressure on you in that way than you do, say, if you're a side person because it's not your project. I mean, either way, I think that learning from or playing with other musicians inevitably informs kind of what you want to do in terms of your own sound. And it's absolutely made me a better musician to play other people's music or to play music that doesn't necessarily sound like mine. I think it's part of the challenge of being a musician. It's also part of the fun. I like, playing for other people as well as doing my own group and having a little more control. I think they're both cool in their own right.
Nice. Well, let's move on to your second choice of music, Zenith, from your current album, Fantôme. You mentioned this track features a distinctive horn arrangement that captures a moment of pure collective energy. Tell us about the Muhammad Ali punch in these arrangements and what the track says about your current musical direction.
I wanted to do a little horn arrangement. I've been getting into arranging a lot more in terms of not just for like quintet, but for larger ensembles. And this is sort of like a light feature of that kind of thing. So it also inspired a lot of other bands to work with me in terms of wanting to arrange my music for larger ensembles. So I recently did that like at the Conservatorium van Amsterdam, the graduate students there, they arranged my music for a large ensemble. It was maybe like 11 people. And then I also worked with the HR Big Band in Frankfurt, and they had also done arrangements of my music. So if I give them more material to work with, to arrange, in the case of a song like this one, then it's very easy to put on shows like this and sort of expand on what I've already started. So that was really cool. I think the other thing is that this song in particular is actually inspired by, I think deeply by a Stefon Harris album called 90 Miles.
Oh, okay.
And he also had like trumpet and tenor saxophone on that record with vibraphone and the hand percussion and everything. I loved that sound. It was such an exciting album when I heard it in high school. So I think, I kind of probably wanted to channel a bit of that as well. But yeah.
Thanks for making that connection and sharing that story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's listen to Sasha Berliner with the track we just were talking about called Zenith. And you're listening to Backstage Bay Area. It's Zenith from Sasha Berliner's album Fantôme. I'm speaking with Sasha, and this is Backstage Bay Area. Sasha, I love the layers in that arrangement. It feels like a conversation between improvisation and highly structured composition. Is that the kind of interaction we can expect from your new electric band when you take the stage at SFJAZZ for the Upswing series?
Yeah, I think so. When it comes to the SFJAZZ show in particular, I think it will be sort of a balance of, it won't be fully electric like my next future project. It's just, to mention what I'm working on next, really. But it won't be quite as arranged in the sense that it will only be quintet for this show. So we won't have the sextet that is present on this recording.
Okay.
But I do think that adding a fifth member adds another dimension to this show. There will be some harmony and some counterpoint, and that tends to be the way that I compose. And I do like that interaction between the band and whoever's playing the melody. And I like that sort of response. And it's even more exciting, I think, to see in person the kind of magic that happens, in the moment that is, even if you're playing the same song as a recording, it's going to sound different live because the solos are going to be different, because the musicians are different, and because, the interaction sort of changes every time that you play the song. And that's like the magic of jazz and improvisation.
Yes, it is. So we might have some gearheads out in our audience. Can you tell us what you're bringing on stage that night?
As for a vibraphone, I'm not totally sure what SFJAZZ is giving me. I assume it's either what I usually ask for on my rider, which is a Marimba 1-1 vibe. That's the main instrument that I play. That's the company that I work with. And Marimba 1 started as a marimba company, but they have vibraphones. If it's not that, then I assume it's some sort of graduated Musser model. And Musser is a huge vibraphone company. They also make excellent instruments. And my very first instrument was an Musser M55, which is famously the set that Gary Burton used, and I did love that set as well. So we'll see when I get there.
Okay.
And then as for mallets, I'm kind of pivoting between a couple because I have a signature model with fader drumsticks, but we're in the process of developing my new mallets, and they're not quite finalized, but they're almost done. So I might be using like kind of an early prototype of those mallets, or there's also these Ne Rosaro Vic Firth mallets that I really like, and those are in a couple of my videos as well.
Nice. I was just curious because when Stefon played there a couple of weeks ago, he had two vibraphones. I'm not an expert on vibraphones, but he had a wooden one and a kind of like a souped up one. I swear from where I was seeing him play that he was like breathing into it, getting some sort of special effects. Does that sound right?
I've never seen him do that. There's one thing you can do where you can like open your mouth on a single note on the vibraphone and create this weird like vibrato thing. But I'm always scared to do it because it looks a little awkward if you misstep or something, and then people are like, "What are you doing?" Like, But I've never seen him do that, but I have seen him use the marimba, right? That's what you're saying is the wooden vibraphone.
Right,
it's a marimba. Right. He uses the marimba and the vibraphone at the same time. It tends to be hard to get both of those on backline. It's expensive to rent these instruments.
Bet. Yeah.
But Stefon has worked his way up to the place where he can probably have the budget to accommodate that kind of thing, or people will just make that happen for him. Once in a while, I can do something like that. It also depends on the size of the stage. It's a lot of fun to have both options, but they're huge instruments. Sometimes the stage with the piano and everything does not have the space to accommodate for all of that. But yeah, it's certainly a signature of his. And I think he got that from Bobby Hutcherson, who also famously played marimba and vibraphone.
Yeah, it was a packed stage when he played there a couple of weeks ago. So I was just curious. Thanks for filling that in. You'll be sharing the night with the incredible Michael Mayo, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. Have you two ever crossed paths in the New York scene before? And how do you see your vibraphone-led textures interacting with his unique loop-heavy vocal approach? I imagine you two won't share the stage at the same time, but I was just curious if you crossed paths with Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. I met him in New York when I was still living there, like 2018 maybe. So I was still in college, and I saw him play at this venue called Rockwood Music Hall, and he was doing his like looper version of giant steps to this like pretty small, intimate audience. And everyone was like floored. They're like, this is incredible. We've never seen anybody do anything quite like this. And I think that's why he's just totally taken off. His approach is really amazing. He's also just such a good musician. He has such a good understanding of harmony and of improvisation, really impressive improvisers. Sometimes people give vocalists this bad reputation of not being great improvisers or anything, but you hear Michael Mayo improvise and it's really next level. You know, he's as good as any instrumentalist. So
absolutely,
it's really special to see. Yeah, can't wait for the show.
Can you tell us who's joining you for this set at SFJAZZ and what makes this specific group of musicians the right fit for this upswing performance?
Yeah, so I have Miles Martin on drums. I have Julio Xavier Cheto on bass. I have Javi Santiago on piano and keys, and then Tristan Capel is going to be playing sax and maybe a little bit of flute. And this group's cool because they're all West Coast, which I think is special to showcase what's going on in like the LA jazz scene right now.
Nice.
And which has become amazing. A lot of New York people moved to the LA scene. I think there's a bit of peace of mind, but also the musicianship's just gotten a lot better there. And so it's really fun to be able to showcase all these incredible musicians who are in LA, and people are like, oh, well, you know, I thought New York was the hot spot, but not necessarily anymore. There's so many great musicians in LA. And yeah, and Julio lives actually in the Bay Area, so he's like a San Francisco native, and he still lives here and is part of the scene here, but everyone else is based in LA, and they're all incredible. I just played at Bach Dancing and Dynamite Society couple weeks ago here in Half Moon Bay, and my trumpet player was the only one from New York, and he was like, I had no idea the musicians in LA were so good. And I was like, I'm telling you, you know, so I think everybody's going to have a bit of that moment with this group, and it will be sort of that electric acoustic fusion. We'll kind of dip into both sides of that for the performance, and we'll play some new compositions and also some of my old stuff. Yeah.
Nice. Sounds like a fantastic, amazing show. And let me remind our listeners, you can catch Sasha live as part of the Upswing Sasha Berliner and Michael Mayo double bill at SFJAZZ's Minor Auditorium on Saturday, December 27th. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. This performance brings together two of the most forward-thinking, boundary-pushing voices in modern music for a special evening in the heart of San Francisco. You can get tickets and more information now, including details about her latest release at sfjazz.org. And Sasha, before I let you go, can you tell us what you've got lined up musically for the next year? I know you hinted at a new album, but what else is on the horizon for you in 2026?
I will be touring quite a bit, which is exciting, with my band. That'll be in the US and also in Europe. I know for Bay Area people, if you're not able to catch me at SFJAZZ, I'll also be doing something with Stanford Live January 17th. So that will be a duo with me and a great pianist named Paul Cornish, who just came out with his debut record. He's been touring with Joshua Redman, who's also a Bay Area person.
Yes, so he is, yeah.
Definitely don't want to miss that if you do have to miss the 27th. Maybe you're out of town with family or something.
Holidays, yeah.
But yeah, and then I do a bunch of touring in Europe in March. I actually will be subbing for Warren Wolf with the SFJAZZ Collective in April. That's going to be at Birdland in New York. And I'll be playing with Etienne Charles as well, great trumpet player. And yeah, doing some more touring throughout the year. I'll go back to Europe in the summer, and I'll still be teaching at UC Irvine too.
Wow.
So
sounds like a busy year.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Congratulations. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. And thanks for being with us today on Backstage Bay Area.
Of course. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. I'm Steve Roby. Thank you for listening. Backstage Bay Area. We'll be right back.
Hey, musicians. Would you like to be a guest on Backstage Bay Area? Just email the host and let him know when you'll be playing in the Bay Area. The address is backstage.sfbay@gmail.com.
This has been Backstage Bay Area, your all-access pass to the local jazz scene. I'm Steve Roby. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the show.